I'm John Franzen. I'm a writer also. Had the very good fortune to meet Bill when I was very young and to get to know his work when very few people knew it. Yeah, okay, sure, yeah, sorry. There's like no good spot.
No, the soundtrack from the Radiator.
I'll drown it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, it was kind of love at first sight, I have to say, and we subsequently became very good friends, and then have drifted apart, although I think there's some signs we are starting to be back in touch. But one of the things that was clear immediately was just that he was a gigantic talent, and we have almost the same, we were born within 2 weeks of each other. And yet he seemed at the time so infinitely more worldly than me that he was kind of a big brother, even though he was like 11 days older than me. And one of the things that made it easy to be friends was there was no sense of competition, because the things he does well, you can't even dream of doing like he does, writing for 16 hours a day and going to dangerous places and churning out those books and reading. He's just an amazing reader. He used to say that the problem with going to the Arctic was he couldn't take enough books along. Because he would read a book like this in the first part of the afternoon and the second one the second part of the afternoon. He needed a Kindle. And yet, if anyone is not going to have one, I suspect he doesn't have one. So I'm just going to read a brief encomium to him, and I'll leave out all the personal parts, which are there. I'm part of the filler portion of the book. Which is it's sort of a mixed bag. All things considered. But I'm very glad you guys did this book. Another big thank you for that. Not incidentally, Bill is one of the great talents of my generation. He's hyper-fertile in the manner of Dickens or Balzac, producing one of those oeuvres that will take people decades to sort out. But already the Rainbow Stories, and oh did I love the Rainbow Stories. I still think The Blue Yonder is one of the best things ever written by an American. That's a personal favorite. Already the Rainbow Stories made it clear that the more appropriate comparison is to Melville and Whitman, writers who, in taking on sprawling new worlds of experience, had few usable literary examples to guide them, and so mainly trusted themselves, their own portable instincts and intelligences. Like them, Bill creates forms as he goes. He's full of an American disdain for authority. He undertakes vast projects. He also produces the occasional clunker. What became his signature form, relatively short passages arranged by a logic more poetic than narrative and headed with oblique or ironic titles, mirrors his approach to topics that most writers would find too huge to imagine tackling. He atomizes himself and tosses his sensibilities to the wind. After the Rainbow Stories, my favorite book of Bill's books is The Atlas. The stories in it are immensely engaged, not just in the physical risks he takes, or in his determination to inject himself into living history, but in his ceaseless quest for meaning and order in a frightening and complicated world. The Atlas who carries the world on his shoulders is essentially the figure of the artist as the Romantics and High Moderns conceived of it, the all-assimilating individual subjectivity. And Bill, better than any other American writer now working, is attempting to do for us this heroic work of taking on the entire world. Perhaps it's no surprise, therefore, that the strongest note in the Atlas, the almost unbearable overtone to the whole, is the author's loneliness. The moment in the book I can't forget is the night in Berlin when his loneliness becomes so intense that he offers money to prostitute after prostitute, seeking only a kiss in return. When he finally finds a willing prostitute, she takes his money and then spits in his face. There's your kiss. one more paragraph. This was the discursive second part. Given the richness of Bill's material, it's possible to overlook what a very fine stylist he can be. A writer could go to all the places he goes and do all the things he does, and if he didn't also write well, none of it would matter. His most willful confusions of fact and imagination, his awfulest catachreses, his most blunt and vulgar factuality all regularly become inspired poetry because it's so clear that he's never considered writing any differently, that what's on the page came as naturally to him as breathing, as naturally but not as easily. To write as well as Bill does, there also has to be a passion for the prose, a hunger for beautiful form, and what I loved and recognized in Bill was that he had that passion and he had that hunger. His books have since earned him a fair number of cult followers for whom he's a kind of outlaw hero, an underground adventurer. But those of us who have the pleasure of his friendship know that when he's talking, as opposed to when he's listening, at which he is a master, his interests run to questions of grammar and punctuation, to who have you been reading, and what are her sentences like.